shut down in either direction for the convoy. So we are on the opposite side of the road with a camera, literally, so you can be along with the crew every step of the way. Tahira, I know we had to cut things short earlier, but I imagine there's been a lot of reaction to the things folks are seeing, and I'm sure you've got some thoughts on a playlist as well.
Yeah, oh my goodness. So, I mean, the top sentiments that we're seeing online are just a lot of patriotism and well wishes for the crew. And that Ride Out playlist question is so fun. I think if I'm awesome enough to be an astronaut, I would definitely be playing Feeling Myself. But I think that's something that we should even pose to the public. So for those of you watching right now, head on over to NASA's Twitter, and we're going to get a question out to ask, what's one song you would absolutely have to have on your Ride Out playlist to the launch pad? Ladies, I'm very excited to see what comes in, so I'll keep you updated.
So just real quick on that note, I just got notification of the playlist.
Okay, we're all dying to know. What are they listening to right now?
Has great music.
So like we mentioned before, they are in 2 different vehicles. They're on one playlist. We have songs like Alicia Keys, How It Feels to Fly, Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight, Eminem, Till I Collapse, Van Halen, Right Now. So like a pretty big
that's
mix.
One of my favorites. Yes.
And then in the other vehicle, Fly Away by Lenny Kravitz, Jump, also by Van Halen, Uptown Funk from Bruno Mars. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yes. Those are all really good ones. I feel like folks are gonna, I don't know, can we make those the choices, Tahira?
I'll let y'all know what comes in.
So Nicole, obviously they're in a pair of Teslas. This is a little different than your ride out experience. Can you kind of compare, contrast for us?
Well, we rode out in something called the Astrovan, which I thought was really cool too. The silver sleek vehicle that was heading out to the pad. But I don't know. There's something about this ride. You're again. The word surreal comes to mind a lot. You're thinking like, I'm in a vehicle that's driving to a launch pad to take me to space, and it's difficult to believe that could be happening. So
I wonder, how did it feel any different the first time versus the second time? Because Victor is the first timer here, and the others, it's their second or even third. And there goes the helo that's leading the way. So that's our cue that the convoy is going to be passing by us pretty shortly. Looks like they're turning right now on NASA Causeway.
Yep. Yeah, it's, I think just like launch, on your second time you think, ooh, been there, done that. You're gonna. But I'll tell you what, the adrenaline, the feeling is equally as excited on the second time too.
Okay, I know you're all watching the convoy, and so are we. We're turning around in our chairs because it looks like. Is that the first car?
That's probably the lead vehicle there.
I think we see the lead car going by. So we're all turned around in our seats so we can watch them in person.
Yeah.
So something that's really cool, well, I think, we can see in the background there, they're passing the Vehicle Assembly Building, or the VAB, a very famous building here at NASA. And I just think it's so cool that they're literally driving down the road where the shuttle and the Saturns used to come down on the crawler, down there on Crawler Causeway. And there we see them in front of the VAB now.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
So awesome.
All right, so as we're getting an awesome look right behind us of the crew passing by the press site here at Kennedy Space Center, among those of you following along on NASA TV and online are a very special group of folks, some who the crew might even recognize. Take a look.
Hello, we are aerospace engineers from the University of Illinois, Mike Hopkins' alma mater. The University of Illinois family would like to wish Mike the very best on his launch and mission to the International Space Station. You're a huge inspiration to all of us. ILL!
What's up, everyone? My name is Aman Asfal from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, Victor Glover's alma mater. I and my fellow students from Cal Poly want to wish Victor and all of Crew 1 a safe launch and wonderful mission to the International Space Station. You're an inspiration to us all, and thank you for representing Cal Poly well.
Hi, I'm Brian Udell from Rice University Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. And I am Penny Pandya with RISE's Society of Women in Space Exploration.
All RISE owls wish Shannon Walker and her crewmates a safe launch.
And a successful mission to the International Space Station.
Fly high, Shannon!
Hi, this is Fuyuki Matsubara from the University of Tokyo School of Engineering. So Ichi, you are a huge inspiration to us all. We are wishing you and your crewmates safe flight and can't wait to see you in space. どうかお気をつけていってらっしゃいませ。
Hey guys, it's me Ryan from Philadelphia, and today I'm going to say have a safe trip. Go NASA, go SpaceX, go Crew 1.
Hi, this is Rob Blevins at the Discovery Center in Springfield, Missouri. We want to thank Mike, Shannon, Victor, and Suichi for helping inspire the next generation of scientists and astronauts to go make history like you're going to do today. Go NASA, go SpaceX, go make history!
Hi everybody, I'm NASA astronaut Drew Feustel, and I'm here with my fellow astronauts to wish Crew 1 a successful and exciting ride to the International Space Station on the SpaceX Dragon. We're excited to see you launch in space. Congratulations to Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and Suichi Noguchi on this historic flight. We can't wait to see you in space. Go Crew 1! Yeah! Go Crew 1!
All right, the crew is continuing to make their way to Launch Pad 39A. We're at T-minus 3 hours and 3 minutes. So in about 8 minutes or so, we should hear the announcement of the crew arriving at the pad. Loved hearing those shout outs from those folks. I think that little girl was my favorite. But Nicole, I know the first time you saw that video, you got to see a lot of familiar faces from the astronaut corps.
Yeah, it's fun, you know. Like the other words I'll use a lot today are living vicariously. I can tell you every single one of the people in that picture were. It's pretty cool.
And now with the eyes of so many around the world watching, the crew is nearing their next milestone. At this point, the convoy is approaching Pad 39A and entering what is known as the BDA, or Blast Danger Area. Before any pad technicians, engineers, or astronauts enter this area around the launch pad, the SpaceX and NASA teams have to do internal go, no-go polls to make sure everything is clear and it's safe to approach.
This view that we have now, I just love it. This is the pad where humans went to the moon. This is Pad 39A, and originally built in the 1960s to support the Saturn V for the Apollo program. It was then upgraded to support the shuttle program. SpaceX signed the lease for it in 2014, made some upgrades ourselves. It might look a little different. We did remove the rotating service structure, but the heart, the bones of the fixed service structure from the shuttle days is still there. We made some modifications and safety improvements. You know, the salty air here can be quite corrosive, but
sure.
As you know, something that is also a little different, the hangar that is built there allows us to do the integration much closer to the pad itself than in the shuttle and the shuttle and the Saturn V Apollo days. So it's really neat to see them. They're approaching now, driving up onto the pad, and I just love thinking about everything that has happened here and appreciate that we have the opportunity to continue human spaceflight from such a historic location.
Yeah, it really strikes me that the last time we saw this happening was, you know, back in the spring with Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley making this approach onto the pad, and we saw them kind of lean back after they got out of the cars, looking up to try to just take in the height and the grandeur of the pad, knowing that they were about to get on a rocket that was going to come to life. And now we have a full crew of 4, and it's just spectacular to know what is just around the corner for them.
Mm-hmm. From their standpoint, standing out there on the pad, they have to look up about 70 meters, considering everything that's holding the rocket up. And
I think that's part of the awe of it, though, too, is that you have to, I mean, you really have to kind of bend back. It's not easy to bend back in those suits and look up like that, but you want to take it in a little bit. I know I heard Suichi earlier echo this sentiment that you get out to the pad on launch day, and it's absolutely like the vehicle is already alive, even before you take off. It's huffing and puffing a little bit, a little bit of smoke or, steam coming out of there, and it's ready to go as well. And I know I love what you're talking about too, Kate, with the transformation of the pad. I think I was very fortunate to fly both times out of 39A on Discovery, and I don't know, on the one side you want the pad just to stay the way it was, when you went, but absolutely that as it's changing, that new opportunities are opening up. It's allowing us to get back to space on a new vehicle and, look to the future of space exploration.
Yeah.
I mean, the pad has to change just like everything else does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the shuttle program was the spaceflight program of my childhood, and there's absolutely nostalgia associated with that service structure. And but to see the transformation take place and to see all of the upgrades that have been incorporated, not only to allow Falcon 9 to fly from here, but also Falcon Heavy, it's really mind-blowing in many ways.
Yeah. And for folks that may be wondering, the reason why we don't see the crew right now, we saw them pull up to the base of the pad. They have an opportunity for a bio break before they get into the elevator. That's, something you can't overlook, important stop you have to make. So we're giving them a chance to do that. And then we will probably hear the official call out that the crew has arrived at the pad at T-minus 2:55. So that's coming up in about 3 minutes or so. And one other thing, Kate, for folks that maybe aren't familiar with the operational timeline for Falcon 9, there's no fuel in the rocket yet, right? That process hasn't started yet. For Crew Dragon, it's a little bit different. But can you explain that process for folks who might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So in order to make sure that the 9 Merlin engines have the best performance possible, we wait as long as we can to begin.
This is Core on countdown 1 for timeline. All personnel have arrived at the pad on schedule.
All right, good call there, confirming that we are on schedule. So as I was saying, we want to make sure that the 9 Merlin engines have the best performance possible, and in order to do that, we use super densified, super chilled liquid oxygen. So the colder you get the liquid oxygen, the more of those oxygen molecules you can pack in. So we get better performance by having more oxidizer, and so we basically wait, in the larger timeline of things, it seems like last minute, but it's around the T-minus 35 minute mark that we will begin that prop loading on first and second stages with liquid oxygen and RP1, which is our rocket grade kerosene, basically.
And Crew Dragon, though, has already been fueled. Right?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the capsule itself, yeah. Right. So the Dragon capsule use hypergolic fuels that are instantaneously combustible. So that's why they're great for a spacecraft, because you don't need an ignition source. You just put the two together, the fuel and the oxidizer, and they combust. So yeah, those hypergolic fuels were loaded onto the capsule earlier in the week. Actually, it might have been last week. I'm losing track of the days at this point.
I know.
But yeah, that is all done prior to integration. That's all done in an area called Dragonland down the street. And then, so the capsule then gets integrated onto the trunk, and then we transport that here to 39A, and then we then integrate the trunk and capsule on top of the second stage.
And we had what is called a dry dress rehearsal of this entire process without fueling the rocket. That's why it's called dry dress, because there's no fuel involved. But that happened on Thursday. So I'm mixing up my days like you, Kate.
We all are.
Today's Sunday, right? Yeah. So Thursday there was a dry dress rehearsal where they went through this whole process from... Sorry, it sounds like we were starting to hear a call, so I don't want to step on that. Okay, so to recap, we had a dry dress rehearsal on Thursday where The teams went through the entire process, starting in the suit up room of suit up, right up to the pad. They ingressed Dragon, closed the hatch, and then they simulated a scrub an hour or so before the simulated launch time. So that is the last opportunity. I think, Nicole, during the shuttle days, they called it the TCDT.
Yep.
And I can't remember what that stands for.
Terminal countdown test. Yeah.
There you go.
Dry run.
And how important is that final opportunity to do that before the real thing?
I think it's really important, and over time we found it was so that we are continuing it now, right? There's something about having the team in that, I mean, really in that launch mode. Real vehicle at the pad, you know, shortly before the actual time is going to come to, you know, to run through these things, and to give the crew an opportunity, like you said, at about an hour before, to run through what it would be like if they needed to scrub and, you know, kind of that final countdown and get, you know, to their escape baskets or down to the base of the pad and out of harm's way. So just get your head kind of in the right place.
Yep, yep. And we actually had a scrub with Bob Benkin and Doug Hurley. The first launch attempt for Demo 2 was May 27th. We ended up not going until May 30th. But that first day, scrub happened at all the way down to, it was like T-minus 17 minutes.
Yeah.
And so Falcon 9 was still, you know, was well into the fueling process, and the crew can't egress from the capsule until the
vehicle is offloaded.
Right, right. We've got to offload all that fuel. So hopefully we won't be in a situation like that today, 50-50. We'll see. But here they are. The astronauts have begun to emerge from their bio break. And I'm not sure which pair this is.
I think that might be Victor and Soichi.
You have better eyes than I do, Kate.
I think that might be Shannon. Yeah, I think that's Shannon.
I'm sorry,
on the right.
Shannon, yeah.
Okay, Victor and Shannon. So they are getting inside the elevator.
Oh.
This is the same elevator Nicole's on.
Yes, it is.
So I mentioned before that we have something called the advanced team. And when I learned about this...
Okay, that's Mike and Shannon.
When I learned about the advanced team, they are responsible for, like I said before, making sure the hatch is open, the cabin has communications and lights. They're also responsible for making sure that someone has the elevator keys.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't just get in there.
Yeah.
You know, the devil's in the details.
For sure. Now, when the astronauts ascend here, just as in the olden days, the levels of the tower are not marked 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. They are marked by foot height. So they press the 255-foot button and ride to the top.
Okay, and here's our first look at that level where they come out of the elevator. Now, they're going to make their way around because they have a handful of stairs to climb to get up to the level where the crew access arm is. That's that long suspended walkway. So here they go up the steps.
Got to work for it.
Yeah, right. Well, they've made it this far. What's a couple more steps?
Oh, look how beautiful.
It's been a long time since I've had the privilege of being up there and seeing that view up in person, but it is just, words don't do it justice.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a view. You can see the NASA worm, and on the far end, that is where the phone is. Nicole, can you talk about the significance of the phone there?
Yeah, and I think they've maintained the same original phone, like the big handset, you know, and it was one last opportunity to, you know, call your family before loading up into the vehicle. And I don't know, I love that NASA and now NASA and SpaceX have maintained these personal touches to the humans that are part of human spaceflight. I think it's really, really important that we do those kinds of things.
And the one other thing that you'll notice are the white arrows pointing towards us on the camera, and that's not just for design. That there's a very
those are
very it does look cool, but that they're very intentional. Okay, and so this will be Victor and Soichi.
Yeah.
Now approaching the pad. So Mike and Shannon got a head start. Victor and Soichi are making their way to the elevator now. I wonder if they're going to stop and
they gotta
strain, or maybe they've already done that to get a look up.
Here they go. It's kind of like the pre-flight, right? The walk around your vehicle before you get in and fly.
Yeah, I feel like this one carries a little more weight.
Yeah, yeah. Incredible.
I really want to come up with a name for the move that they have to do when they turn and bend and look back.
Yeah, it's the don't fall backwards move.
Yeah.
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 And you know, we're having a lot of fun here. We know the crew is having a blast. There they are. I knew they were going to do it. But you know, this is they must have so much adrenaline pumping through them, because you know when you are getting on top of a rocket, your life is at stake. And that's not something that any of the people involved in this mission from start to finish take for granted or take lightly. The folks who work on this program take that responsibility to heart. And like you said, Nicole, I mean, when you're talking about the relationships with the people in the suit-up room, they have those relationships with people across the NASA and SpaceX teams. They walk the factory floor in Hawthorne, and the people that work this mission, they know the astronauts and they see them as their own family. Here's a look inside the crew access arm from the inside.
I love this shot. Yeah. You know, when this was being designed, it was definitely a forward-thinking design that we went with. We really wanted it to encapsulate the experience of the next era of spaceflight, really wanting to make it look futuristic, as with the suits and the capsule itself. Very sleek and elegant.
Okay, so here's Victor and Soichi. The last shot inside the access arm was Mike and Shannon. So they're standing now inside the white room. We're going to explain a little bit more about that in a minute, but you can see the side hatch of Dragon open, and that is where they are going to ingress or climb inside in about 13 minutes if things are on schedule. Yeah. They're signing the wall there. Kate, can you explain what they're doing there with the signatures?
So we just saw Mike's...
The crew has arrived at the white room on schedule.
All right, good core call there. Just notifying everyone that the crew has arrived on time. We now see Shannon adding her signature to the wall. So in keeping with tradition, we painted this room white, and the advanced team, once again, I'll talk about them. Part of their responsibility, also making sure that there's a Sharpie on hand so that crew members can add their names to our signature wall. Bob and Doug did this prior to their flight, and I love that this is really the last thing you do before you get in our spaceship. I just love that there's an opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the list of names grow over time.
It's going to be spectacular to see. Well, you know, if everything goes as planned, we'll have the next group of 4 signing their names there in the spring with Crew 2.
Mm-hmm.
And on Crew 2, one of your crew members will be, you know, Megan MacArthur-Bankin, wife of Bob, who flew DM2.
You know, they are my definition of a power couple, and I'm here for it. I love it. I'm really excited to see what the seat assignments will be, because it'd be really cool if she was sitting in the same position as he was inside the capsule for her mission.
Oh, there's a wave.
Yeah.
This is so exciting for Soichi, and I know he has some extended family who couldn't be here in Florida for the launch, but hopefully they're getting the opportunity to watch from Japan. And I'm trying to think of what time it is there now. It's early Monday morning, so if they set their alarm clocks early enough, they'll have a chance to.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
So I think at this point in time, Victor is making that last family phone call.
Mm-hmm. And Kate, we started to talk about the arrows, and then hi. I feel like he's watching us.
Well, you know, that's so awesome that he's doing that, because I think we had talked about this once before, where in the white room before, because with shuttle, we didn't have that like last meet and greet kind of thing at the O&C before getting in the vehicles. We knew the cameras were there, we knew our families were watching, and we would do like little secret hand signals to our spouses and kids.
Okay.
And they'd know it was coming. You couldn't say anything, but you could do the little love you thing.
Sign language, yeah. But the arrows, I know you can't see them on the screen right now, but we've mentioned them a couple times. Those are for emergency egress. If for any reason the crew had to get out of the capsule, get out of the white room, and get away from the pad in a hurry. That is the arrows that show them go this way, essentially.
And you need something like that because, you know, depending on the situation, you might actually have some smoke or the water deluge system going. And so you tip your head down, you look at the floor, you grab each other and go.
Yeah, and if we were to do a quick exit from the tower, we utilize basically baskets that are on zip lines and they slide down the wire to safety.
And you can see on your screen the crew beginning the ingress process already. So our timeline has this happening at T-minus 2 hours and 35 minutes. So it looks like they may just be starting that a little bit early. There are, of course, 4 astronauts who have to ingress. So this doesn't happen in an instant. It's a process, but obviously that process has begun.
So we see some of the suit technicians there assisting them to get into their seat, making sure that the boots are able to lock into position on the footrest appropriately, making sure once again that all the zippers are in the right place, and making sure that we're able to do all the checkouts necessary, both in terms of environmental controls, but also communication audio as well.
And I wasn't sure, do we have Mike and Shannon already inside? Okay,
Yeah,
so
they're
Mike and
both in
Shannon
there.
are already inside, and Victor and Soichi have not made their way into the white room yet. They're finishing up their phone calls. And so again, crew ingress is just a space-like term for getting inside the spacecraft. So Mike Hopkins and Shannon Walker have ingressed Crew Dragon. You can see the bottom of one of their legs inside the open hatch there. And Victor Glover and Soichi Noguchi looks like are now making their way. They're starting to move. They will be walking down the crew access arm. There's the outside of it, so they're making their way down that hallway as we speak, and they'll be stopping in the white room in just a moment.
You know, it's hard to see in that shot, but I'm very happy to say that we got blue skies and a couple of puffy white clouds working with us. So while it might look a little overcast on the screen, we're pretty happy with what we've got at the moment.
And you can see the little shadows of them moving along through the windows into the white room. Almost there.
Okay, there they are. So this is, again, a look inside the white room. It's not a very big space. It's pretty tight, but that's by design. Okay, so while Victor and Soichi are getting a chance to sign their names to the inside of the white room, we want to recap just a little bit. If you're just joining us, you're watching live coverage of NASA's SpaceX Crew 1 mission, today sending 4 astronauts into orbit on a mission to the International Space Station. NASA astronauts Victor Glover, Mike Hopkins, Shannon Walker, and Soichi Noguchi are flying on a 6-month mission to the International Space Station. Good afternoon and welcome to Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Marie Lewis, Public Affairs Officer for NASA.
And I'm Kate Tice, Senior Certification Engineer at SpaceX. Happy to be bringing you live coverage of the Crew 1 mission from Kennedy Space Center. Joining us is retired NASA astronaut Nicole Stott, who has flown twice on the shuttle, so pretty exciting to have you here with us. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Very nice to be here today with you ladies.
And again, the crew has already arrived at Pad 39A, where a Falcon 9 will lift off from 7:27 p.m. Eastern, and Victor Glover and Soichi Noguchi are standing inside the white room. Mike Hopkins and Shannon Walker are already inside Crew Dragon.
Yeah, so it looks like we're fitting up the earpieces now and just doing a couple final checks. They have ascended the tall structure next to the rocket, known as the fixed service structure, and they've walked down that futuristic looking corridor known as the crew access arm.
And so now they are about halfway through the process of boarding Dragon, so it looks like possibly a little bit ahead of schedule. Our crew members, they're making their final stop. Again, this is the White Room, and the White Room is this small space at the end of the crew access arm that provides entry into Crew Dragon. And as Kate mentioned earlier, this is the last place the crew will be on Earth before stepping into the spacecraft for their ride to the International Space Station.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, the term White Room it has a little bit of history. It was first used during the NASA Gemini missions, where the room right before entering into the spacecraft was painted white. So we love traditions when we've continued this one by painting ours white as well. Like Marie said, it is a pretty small area, and it has just enough room for the crew and a couple of ground support members to allow them to complete late cargo load at T-minus 24 hours. And then, of course, what we were just witnessing, crew ingress, running a little bit ahead of schedule at T-minus 39 minutes, 2 hours and 39 minutes. And ingress is how we refer to boarding on top of Crew Dragon.
Now, inside the White Room where we're looking, there is a movable platform that gets extended out to the capsule, and that helps bridge the gap between the crew access arm and the Dragon side hatch. And this allows for easy entry into the spacecraft. As you might expect, it's environmentally controlled so that the Dragon side hatch can be opened while at the same time keeping dust, dirt, that nasty Florida humidity out of the capsule to make sure it is just in pristine condition for the crew. There is also a large seal that gets inflated and compressed against the capsule to make sure that we can maintain these clean environments.
Yeah, so this is all really exciting to watch. Like I mentioned, you saw them take part in that tradition that we've mentioned a couple of times and it began with our Demo 2 crew of NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. They signed the wall of the room to mark that they are now part of the select few who will have launched after leaving this room. So the White Room also has lots of other tools that are utilized in order to open the side hatch and complete crew ingress, as well as allowing them to prepare for any contingency or emergency that might be encountered. So as we're waiting for our last crew member to hop inside Crew Dragon, let's check back in with Jesse and Leah back at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. How's it going over there, Jesse?
Everything is going good. We are so excited watching ingress right now.
Yeah, so as Jesse just mentioned, this is ingress. That means the astronauts are entering the Dragon capsule. That's a spaceflight term, and you'll hear a lot of these space terms in the coming hours and days. Ingress is what we use when crew members are getting into a spacecraft or airlock, and egress means the opposite. They're exiting. But before climbing into the capsule today, the crew completed a foreign object debris check, also known as FOD check. That means they themselves have to be inspected for any substance or debris that isn't supposed to be on them or their suits, which could potentially cause damage to Dragon.
To help protect against debris, the crew has covers on their boots as well as their umbilical port on their suits that need to be removed before they ingress. So they've been doing that. Victor is up next or last, completing that FOD check. And once the FOD check is complete, Mike Hopkins, our commander, first ingressed, and then Shannon Walker, Soichi Noguchi, and now we are waiting for Victor Glover, actually watching him enter the vehicle right now. And they are now getting buckled in and attaching their umbilicals to their suits. The suit techs are there helping if as needed. The umbilicals allow the crew to have comms through their suit, air to help keep them cool, as well as delivers nitrox for suit pressurization. And as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the suit's primary function is to protect the crew in the event of a cabin depressurization.
I love this view inside Crew Dragon, and as you saw, there are 4 seats configured right now, and they're numbered 1 to 4 from right to left when you're looking at the seats. Mike Hopkins is in seat 2, that's the commander's seat, and then Victor Glover will be beside him in seat 3. That for Crew Dragon is the pilot seat. Soichi Noguchi is in seat 1, and Shannon Walker is in seat 4. Now directly in front of them, which you can see here, are 3 displays which they'll use throughout the flight, getting insight into Dragon systems, seeing any alerts or issues with the vehicle, and if required, they can take control and manually fly Dragon.
And coming up, the crew will do a comm check to make sure that they can hear mission control, and then their seats will be rotated into position for launch. But right now, they are finishing getting buckled in and getting their suits connected to those custom seats.
Some of those things to listen for when we're doing those comm checks. They'll be doing comm checks through multiple paths to Dragon. They'll do some through TDRS, that's our tracking data and relay satellite system. We also use that for communications with the International Space Station. And then you'll hear ground. That refers to several ground stations around the globe that SpaceX had. And upon liftoff, those ground stations will be able to provide telemetry from Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. There's also about a half a dozen checks to ensure everybody's ready in here. You can see those suit-up crew. I've heard people call them the ninjas before. I think it's a pretty apt name. But they are checking to make sure the suits are ready. They're helping them connect the umbilicals. They're buckling them in. They're also assisting with those leak and comm checks. So they each have a very individual and specific role. And we just stepped through this a couple of days ago for the dry dress. Every single detail, we stepped through it from buckling up to connecting the umbilicals, even the comm checks. So it's kind of like run 2,
right.
But really day 1.
Little deja vu, but it's all very, very organized. Doing the practice runs helps make sure. This helps make sure that everything goes smoothly. On the day of launch, like today. It looks like almost everybody's all buckled in, just finishing up with Victor. Comm check should occur once everybody's already buckled in, so.
A lot of excitement. Really cool to see 4 crew members. Just saw a wave from Shannon there in that far left seat.
All right, well, let's check in with John Innsbrucker for the latest with the health of both vehicles. What's the update so far, John?
Well, we've got just over 2.5 hours remaining in the countdown for the launch of Falcon 9 with Dragon on the Crew 1 mission to the space station. Right now, the Dragon launch ops team has completed their major activities to prepare the spacecraft for the astronauts. Checkouts of major systems are complete, including the escape system. And as you can see, ingress of the astronauts is well underway, getting Victor strapped in right now. No issues are in work. And right now, we're listening, waiting for comm checks with the crew and the ground coming up here shortly. On the launch vehicle, the Falcon 9 team is located in Firing Room 4 in the Launch Control Center at KSC. They're settling in for final checkouts and propellant loading and launch. They'll be doing comm checks with the crew, and that'll happen at about T-minus 2 hours. Currently, all systems are go on the Falcon 9 launch vehicle. The range continues to report no problems. The weather forecast continues to be acceptable. We're watching the upper altitude rain showers if they're in the trajectory of the vehicle. Also watching thick cloud rule and keeping the fingers crossed. We're also looking at weather around the world. We need to make sure conditions are acceptable if Dragon has to splash down in the Atlantic in case of an escape. And we're also monitoring contingency splashdown locations if the crew had to come back to Earth before docking with the space station. Now, if this were to happen, SpaceX and NASA are coordinating with the U.S. Coast Guard to ensure crew safety upon splashdown. And that includes extra ships and air assets to patrol a 10 nautical mile keep-out zone. This will help mitigate safety concerns for any boaters who are approaching the launch area. As the clock continues to count down, all systems are go at T-minus 2 hours, 31 minutes. And let's head back over to Jesse and Leah, who are also here in Hawthorne, as we wait for the comm checks with the crew.
Thanks, John. Sounds like everything is looking good so far. We're getting really excited here. And the astronauts are still wrapping up, buckling in, and getting their suits connected to their seats.
Definitely ahead of schedule today, though, so that's a good sign. And as we mentioned, we're really standing by for those comm checks with the crew. Some of the people you'll hear talking with the crew during those comm checks are the core, which we've mentioned. That's the Crew Operations and Resources Engineer. They're here in Hawthorne. We have a similar position at NASA called the CAPCOM. That's the person who really takes the, oh, and there's the core right there. That's the person who really takes all of the information that's happening down on the ground and relays it to the crew so it's coming from one location. Additionally, there's the LD, that's the launch director. They're down in Florida and they're overseeing all of the countdown operations. The mission director, or the MD, is also here in Hawthorne in mission control, and that's the overall flight lead for SpaceX. So those are some of the people that you will hear speaking with the crew during their comm checks today.
Once they're all finished getting buckled in, those seats will also rotate into launch position. Right now, it does look like they're a little further away from those display panels, but once they rotate backwards, those display panels will be right in front of them and easy to access.
Just under 2.5 hours now, too, before we launch today. As John and I mentioned, weather's still looking good. Just a little bit about the vehicle they're on itself. Crew Dragon and its trunk are about 27 feet tall. That's from the tip of the nose cone to the base of the trunk. Under that nose cone, we have bulkhead thrusters. Those will be used for some of the burns after the crew are already on orbit. And once they launch today, as we mentioned, it's going to take about 27.5 hours until they arrive at their destination on the space station. That allows them to get a little bit of a sleep period, because at some point, obviously, you get a little too tired. We want to make sure our astronauts are cognizant and fully focused on the mission. And so after a really long day today, they're going to get to sleep for about 8 hours tonight before waking up tomorrow, continuing on with the mission, and then docking with the International Space Station.
And again, we are standing by for those comm checks. This is just to make sure that their comm path does work properly before liftoff, making sure that they can hear the core here in Hawthorne.
Just a high-level look at some of the other milestones that will be coming up over these next 2.5 hours. The next big milestone will be the hatch closure. We'll be looking for that around T-minus 1 hour and 55 minutes. And then at 45 minutes before launch will be the go, no-go for propellant load. So there's not any propellant on the first or second stage of Falcon 9 right now, but they'll begin loading some densified kerosene, and then the oxidizer is some liquid oxygen. That will be loaded onto the Crew Dragon up until just a few minutes before launch, or loaded onto Falcon 9, I should say.
And again, we are still waiting for those comm checks. Looks like the crew is almost done getting all strapped in, their suits connected to their custom seats. Shortly, we will do comm checks as well as have their seats rotated back into launch position.
And that launch position also gives them a really good view of those three main displays, which aren't used for them to command the mission. It's really for them to monitor where they're at, monitor how the vehicle is doing. They can take control if need be. However, this is an autonomous vehicle, so after launch today, they should just be along for the ride until we get to docking tomorrow.
And SpaceX, this is Dragon. We are ready for comm checks, 1.3 of 4.100.
Copy. Stand by for umbilical comm check. CDR, PLT, MS1, MS2, comm check.
Comm checks here shortly.
And SpaceX, this is Dragon on umbilical. Commander has you loud and clear.
PLT, umbilical, loud and clear. MS1, umbilical, loud and clear.
MS2, umbilical, loud and clear.
And core, copy. 4 good comm checks, loud and clear. Umbilical comm check complete. Stand by for ground station comm check. Dragon, SpaceX, comm check over ground stations.
And SpaceX, this is Dragon. Have you loud and clear on ground station.
And core, I've got you loud and clear. Ground station comm check complete. Stand by for TDRS comm check. Dragon, SpaceX, comm check over TDRS.
And SpaceX, this is Dragon. Have you loud and clear over TDRS.
Copy, have you loud and clear as well. TDRS comm check complete. Stand by for comm checks with MD and LD in the launch configuration.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1, comm check.
MD, this is Dragon on countdown 1, loud and clear.
Good afternoon, Resilience. Got you loud and clear as well. Stand by for comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, MD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
MD, this is Dragon, loud and clear on Dragon to ground.
Copy, loud and clear. Standing by for comm checks with LD.
Dragon, LD on countdown 1, comm check.
LD, this is Dragon on countdown 1. Have you loud and clear.
LD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks over Dragon to ground. LD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
And LD, this is Dragon. Have you loud and clear on Dragon to ground.
LD, loud and clear. Good luck, Resilience crew.
Copy and thank you.
Okay, Resilience. That concludes our launch configuration comm checks. Please report when you are ready for seat rotation per section 2 of 4.100.
Dragon copies and inward.
And sounds like we just completed comm checks. Sounds like everything is good to go. So we're going to head back over to KSC with Marie.
Thanks, Jesse. We are now getting an up-close look at a full-scale mock-up of Crew Dragon. And Kate, the astronauts are sitting inside a Crew Dragon that's very much like this one. Can you kind of give us a layout of what we're looking at here?
Yeah. So this is an exact replica, a 1-to-1 scale of Crew Dragon. So you can kind of see size-wise the amount of room that our four crew members have to move around. While this isn't the exact training module that they use to train in, as I've mentioned before, our crew trains at SpaceX extensively prior to flight. They use a mock-up similar to this one for things very detailed, such as running procedures inside the capsule, but also something as simple as practicing getting in and out, going through the side hatch, especially in a spacesuit. That could be a little clunky. Nicole, you flew on shuttle twice. I'm sure you had training and modules similar.
We did, and you know what's really exciting for crew members is once you start doing a lot of training in the mock-ups, you know you're close to flying in space. So you really get excited about that. I don't know, I look at this and it's really neat to me to be just up close and personal with, even with a mock-up of the spacecraft. But, you know, I look at it and there's things that are certainly familiar, like a window. Thankfully, there's windows. But what is some of the other stuff we're seeing on here? These, you know, these silver little ovals, and I know that's the hatch, but what else are we looking at here?
So these are the ports for our Draco thruster system. As I've mentioned before, Dragon is capable of steering itself in space, and that onboard propulsion system is here. These are the Draco thruster ports that are utilized during in-flight and orbit maneuvers. Over here on the side, we have the Super Draco system, which is basically a super-powered high-flow system, and those are only utilized in an abort scenario. So we talked a little bit about escape procedures. Those Super Dracos will not be firing on a nominal day, but they're important to have, as you know, they give the crew a path to safety if necessary.
And we just heard the call for seat rotation. So that means that the crew, their seats are being rotated into position for launch. So we are going to send it over to NASA's Daryl Nail. He is at the OSB-2 viewing location with Kennedy Center Director Bob Cabana. Daryl?
Right, thank you, Marie, and thank you for the tour of the Dragon space capsule. And I am here with Bob Cabana, director of the Kennedy Space Center. Thanks for being here, Bob. And this is the Kennedy interview desk, and we are in the shadow of a little bit of cool hardware ourselves, the vehicle assembly building, which looks outstanding.
Doesn't it? It's got a new, we touched it up a little. We repainted the flag and the NASA meatball and the sides of it. We got it all spiffed up for this history-making day.
Excellent.
You know, it's another great day at Kennedy Space Center, America's premier multi-user spaceport. We're making history.
You like to talk about that.
First FAA commercial licensed launch of crew to the International Space Station.
And to that point, why is that important for Kennedy?
Well, it's important because we're trying to establish a commercial economy in low Earth orbit, all right? We want to be one of many customers. So by us flying crews to the International Space Station on an FAA licensed flight, it opens up the door for other people to fly up there.
Right.
Other commercial customers. Yeah.
So I saw you down there with the crew getting out, and they were walking out to their cars.
Yeah, they look great. They're excited.
I think I saw you were holding your phone, getting some shots.
I did. I got, you know, I kind of admit I'm a little bit of a space nerd.
Well, hey, listen, I mean, you've been to space 4 times, so you understand what these folks are going through right now. I mean, it's getting real. These seats are articulating up. You can see it moving right now, Bob, as they get into position there. Yep. This must be a moment where it kind of gets real.
Oh, yeah. Once you're strapped in, and wait till they close the hatch, then it's really real.
Is that the moment it clicks?
Yeah, then it's like, okay, we're inside this thing, we're going. You know.
What's the feeling? What kind of goes through your head?
So it depends on different. I mean, on my first flight, what absolutely went through my head was, I don't want to screw this up. You know, I want to make sure I don't make any mistakes. Yeah. I mean, I was really focused on making sure that I did everything absolutely perfect. And you don't know what to expect. First off, no simulator on Earth can prepare you for what it's like to ride a rocket into space. I mean, you practice everything, but man, it just gets up and goes. That acceleration, that force pushing you back in the seat, it's something else. And so not knowing what that's going to be like, there's a little bit of anticipation. You know, when you go a second and third time, then you got a little more idea of what to expect, and you can relax a little bit more. But so there's anticipation of what is this going to be like? What is this going to feel like?
And you would think there's some nerves there, right, just naturally in this moment. But these 4 astronauts, they also ate extremely well. So I hope that the nerves don't get them too much. They ate well because they were at the astronaut crew quarters. You've been hosting them for the past week.
Sure.
And tell me about what they got to eat. Like
anything they wanted.
That's great. On the menu, whatever you want. I heard like New York strip steak, basmati rice.
Yeah, whatever.
There was some dressing thrown in.
Yeah. No, life in crew quarters is good. Yeah. With there's one crew. We used to have a motto in crew quarters: eat till you're sleepy and sleep till it's time you're hungry.
That's a good way to leave. I'm surprised you can get them out there to get on the rocket with that kind of living.
So that's why you don't want to spend too much time in crew quarters. No, but we do a great job protecting our astronauts from keeping them healthy. But you know, it's not about. It's just amazing what we do. You know, I would trade places with any one of them in a heartbeat. I'm really proud of these guys, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished as a nation to have this commercial crew program. Kathy Leaders and her team have just done an outstanding job getting it. You know, getting Bob and Doug Hurley up there and home safely, paving the way for this first flight under contract with SpaceX. Yeah. You know, this is the future, and we want to get Boeing flying too. They're right over here building the CST-100. We got to have them have a successful flight so that we have dissimilar redundancy so that we can get crews to and from the International Space Station.
Their test launch right around the corner next year in 2021. Bob Cabana, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate your insight as always. Bob
Thanks
Cabana
for having me, Daryl.
Flew into space 4 times, folks. So between me and him, we have 4 flights into space. There you go. We'll send it back to you guys. Tahira.
Hey, Daryl, thank you so much. So right now we've got about 300,000 people tuning in across all of our social channels. That's about 100,000 more from when we last checked in. And ladies, I am seeing some great comments coming in online, and I've got a few I want to show you. So this first one is, she says, I've always heard NASA astronauts talk about steak and eggs for breakfast, but this is the first time I've heard of curry rice. Love this. And just a huge thank you to astronaut Soichi for sharing this tradition with us. And let's take a look at another one. So we've got this user saying this is like watching Apollo 11. This will make history, and a private company sending humans to space with a reusable rocket. The future is now. So, and again, Marie, people have been super curious about what the zero gravity indicator is going to be on today's flight. I was wondering if you could maybe give us a hint.
Okay, so I know what it's going to be. Nicole knows. I think Kate might know. We're not allowed to say yet, but I can tell you to keep your eye out. It will make an appearance at some point, but it's a surprise. It's special.
Even
it's going to be great.
Have to tune in. So. And ladies, we're hearing about the larger crew size in the capsule today, and I think that's super fun to think about of those at home. So I think we're going to pose the question to the public to see how big is their dream space crew. And we'll make this a poll, and so I'll share the results with you later on in the show. But Nicole, you're the only one up here that's actually been to space and on a few different crew sizes. Do you have a preferred number?
Well, 6 seemed to be the number for me, and I think if I could add my family members on top of that, that would be outstanding.
Oh, I agree. And room for pets.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So, ladies, over the past month, we've also been asking users on social media to show us how they're getting excited for today's launch, and we've received some amazing submissions from around the world. Take a look at these.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
And SpaceX System Dragon, you show a nominal check.
I mean, there you have it. People from around the world are just engaged with this launch.
All right, thanks to Hira, and thanks to all of you following along. Keep sending us your submissions, how you're watching. We love seeing those. So we had seat rotation and comm checks, and we want to learn a little bit more about the crew before we get into hatch closure. This will be the second space flight.
5.2 at 4.100. We are ready for Dragon hatch closure.
Okay, so we just heard the call.
I'll be ready for hatch closure, and we'll keep you posted as that progresses.
Okay, so we heard the call that they're ready for hatch closure. So we're going to pause for just a moment. So if you've been following along, we actually heard the call out and saw seat rotation happen just, I think it was a couple of minutes earlier than we had on our timeline. Okay, so hatch closure is coming up, but in the meantime, we want to learn a little bit more about Crew Dragon Commander Mike Hopkins. He is a U.S. Air Force colonel, and here's a little bit more about the Missouri native who's already logged 166 days in space.
Sitting on the launch pad is definitely a moment that you're always thinking about, right? That's one of the more critical phases of the flight, as you can imagine. You're very focused in, right? It can be a very emotional time. You're kind of pinching yourself because it's hard to believe that you're finally there.
Born in Lebanon, Missouri, he is an Air Force colonel and a flight test engineer. He was selected as an astronaut in 2009. He spent 166 days on the International Space Station, introducing NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins.
You know, it's funny, I mean, a lot of times people think of the dream of being an astronaut as something that a kid would have. And I remember when my wife and I first started dating at the University of Illinois, and I told her that I wanted to be an astronaut. She laughed at me and kind of said, "Are you serious?" But at the same time, she stuck with me throughout the years, and to have that dream come true is pretty amazing. My role on the Crew Dragon itself as part of Crew 1 is the commander of the vehicle. We'll be launching to the International Space Station, and we're going to be doing a long-duration mission, a standard long-duration mission. One of the nice things about being on board the International Space Station is you have a lot of connectivity, believe it or not, with your family. And so I was able to call just about every day. My family means everything to me. It is the most important part of my life. My wife Julie, my son Ryan, my son Lucas, they are just such a huge part of this whole endeavor. You know, without family, it just wouldn't be as meaningful. The partnership that we have right now with SpaceX, it's pretty powerful. They bring a lot to the table. NASA brings a lot to the table. We've got a ton of experience in human spaceflight. When you're out there on a day-to-day basis and you're interacting with their engineers, and you're interacting with their trainers, and you're interacting with the people that are actually building the rockets and building the capsule itself, you really get to establish the relationships, the personal relationships. It's not just about the astronauts that are on board, but it's about the entire team at NASA and SpaceX that it's taken to launch this Crew 1 vehicle, and we couldn't do our job without them.
Seated next to Mike Hopkins is Crew Dragon pilot Victor Glover, who has flown on 40 different types of aircraft for a total of more than 3,000 hours. Helping prepare him for this, piloting his first test flight to space. Here's more about the U.S. Navy commander and California native.
I saw a shuttle launch when I was in elementary school, and I thought I really want to fly that. And that's where it began.
He is a Navy commander, a naval aviator, and a test pilot. He was selected as an astronaut in 2013. This is his first space flight, introducing NASA astronaut Victor Glover.
First and foremost, I'm just grateful to God and to my family. To work and live in space is just a humbling and amazing blessing in and of itself. This is a test pilot's dream. Flying has been such an important part of my professional life, and I love to do it. 64,000 feet, that's the highest up I've ever been above the ground. And so to get to a point beyond that, that'll be a little special moment. I'm rookie astronaut. I'm the pilot and going to be learning the ropes from a very experienced crew. Trying to balance that, enjoying and living in the moment, but also managing the responsibilities to make sure that we get to space safely. I'm looking forward to that juxtaposition of emotion, I think.
Tell me about how you ended up here. I think for every astronaut, that's kind of a different story.
Ooh, wow, that goes way back. So high school athlete, loved being a part of a small high-performing team, wrestling and football. Was fortunate to wrestle in college while pursuing my engineering education. I actually originally wanted to be a Navy SEAL. That's what started my journey in the Navy, and I wound up deciding to go into aviation and learn to fly. The love of flying and being a part of a small, very specialized, high-performing team that gets to do things in really interesting and challenging environments. The astronaut corps is the epitome of that.
This is truly an exciting time for human spaceflight in our nation, and believe me, it's only going to get better as we charge off into the future.
We've been working with our partner SpaceX for years. It's just been amazing to learn about the vehicle and to just spend time getting to know their flight control team and their trainers. It's creating sort of a new culture that is some kind of a balance between the two. The fact that it takes thousands of people all over the world to get us ready, it's humbling and overwhelming, and I want to do my best because I represent them. So thank you for your support and for your love, and know that you're flying with us on Crew One.
Okay, so while we were in that video, we saw the hatch close. We have not heard the confirmation of the hatch close. We're not expecting that until T-minus 1 hour and 55 minutes. So we're still almost 10 minutes away from that. But even though the hatch appears to be closed, there's a process to completing this and making sure that it's sealed and there's no leaking. So Kate, can you kind of explain what the crew is doing now during this hatch closure process?
Yeah, for sure. So like Marie said, it's not quite as simple as closing your car door. Of course, they're having to make sure that everything is in place. There will actually be a seal that is inflated to ensure that all of basically that it is watertight. If it's watertight, it'll get to space. So we see the crew, the closeout techs, the suit techs, all there in their numbered uniforms going through the steps. You can see the tablets in their hands. Those are our electronic procedures or e-procedures, and they are essentially stepping through each one to make sure that, and giving verbal cues saying that is complete, we are good, and we're basically just counting through the process step by step, getting closer to launch time, which at this point we're just a mere 2 hours and 3 minutes away from.
Nicole, what was it like when you were sitting inside the space shuttle when that moment when, you know, that last door to the outside closed?
You know, I think it's like all the steps we've been talking along the way. It's another one of those, wow, this could be real today steps. And that is certainly one that makes you think it's going to happen. You're at that point, you know the closeout crew is getting ready to depart the pad shortly, and you know that you're going to be out there on your own with your crew waiting to go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and in seat number 1 today is Crew 1 mission specialist Shannon Walker, who flew previously on the Russian Soyuz to the International Space Station, spending 163 days in space. Here's more on Dr. Walker, who will be the first woman to fly on a commercial orbital spacecraft.
I always wanted to be an astronaut. I just turned 4 when we first landed on the moon. And I have very distinct memory of my parents taking me and my older sister out into the backyard, and the moon was rising over our house, and they pointed up there and said, "We have people there." And even at 4, I thought that just sounded like the best idea ever.
We have been given the scientific knowledge, the technical ability, and the materials to pursue the exploration of the universe. To ignore these great resources would be a corruption of a God-given ability.
I had seen a new class of astronauts that had been hired for the space shuttle, and I was reading in the newspaper what their qualifications were, and just going through some of them, I realized I can do that. And that was a big turning point. I'm Dr. Shannon Walker, NASA astronaut, and I am getting ready to fly on the Crew 1 mission to the International Space Station. Crew 1 is the first operational mission of the Crew Dragon vehicle to the International Space Station. I was not expecting the call to be assigned, and so anytime you get a flight assignment, it's tremendously exciting. I spent 6 months on the station previously in 2010, and I am so looking forward to getting back there and having another 6 months on the space station. There are so many things that you could do on station. What I like about it is every day really is different. You get up and you may be doing a biological experiment one day, you may be doing maintenance on equipment the next day, and then the day following that you'll be doing some sort of experiment in chemistry. What I have found being part of the International Space Station program, and not just Russia, but our colleagues in Japan and Europe and Canada, is that underneath it all, we all have the same goals and we all have the same passions. The Dragon spacecraft represents to me is just a continuing evolution of better computing power that's evolved over the years and different ways that the crew can interact with the spacecraft. SpaceX is a very interesting company. There are so many young people. I always imagine it to be like it was in the early Apollo days at NASA, with so many young engineers so passionate about what they are doing. The important thing is we both have learned from each other, and now we've got a very strong bond on what we want to accomplish and how we need to accomplish it together. I do believe that human spaceflight is an imperative for our planet, and to be a part of that, to keep the progress going, I find very inspiring.
Crew 1 mission specialist Soichi Noguchi has spent 177 days in space, and this will be his third mission in an orbital spacecraft. Here's more on the first international partner to fly aboard Crew Dragon.
Soichi appears to be a very quiet person, and yet he comes out with some fantastic one-liners.
Soichi is probably the quietest, but he is probably the funniest as well.
Earlier, I used the word dignified to describe him, but his humor is very dry and subtle, but it is extremely witty, and it just makes it that much more funny.
Konnichiwa. My name is Soichi Noguchi. I am Mission Specialist 1 on Crew 1 mission to International Space Station. Well, my mission will be help support the commander and the pilot on Crew Dragon. And of course, once I arrive on the space station, I'll be a board engineer and do lots of science and maintenance and spacewalks, robotics, all kinds of work. I'm really fortunate enough to have a good crew member. And obviously we have a lot of a different background, and the diversity definitely gives us a great rigidity to our crew. I wanted to be an astronaut for a long time. High school days, I watched the shuttle launch. I studied aerodynamics and aerospace engineering. When I turned 30, Japanese Space Agency started recruiting another astronaut class. I was fortunate enough to be selected and sent immediately to Johnson Space Center. My first flight was 2005. That was on the Space Shuttle Discovery, STS-114. And the next flight was 2009. That was on the Russian Soyuz. The vehicle is definitely like living creature. All the pipes, all the pipelines are alive. I really remember the morning of the launch day, arrive at the pad. Hey, this vehicle is alive and waiting to go out.
And liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery, beginning America's new journey to the moon, Mars, and beyond.
I'm really looking forward to go back to that launch day. The Crew 1 is the first operational spaceflight after the certification given by NASA. Important thing is this is brand new, designed from scratch, 21st century spacecraft. and this is a new design. And obviously, the SpaceX did a very nice job. The spacecraft of this century is not just for America, but this is an international corporation, and all the other people around the world have a chance to ride on this Crew Dragon. So this is a new era.
Okay, we're looking live now inside the White Room. You can see.
We're discussing that. Negative. We're going to go to pad hatch reopen temporarily.
Okay, so it sounds like they may be reopening the hatch. We're going to listen in to see if we can hear any more chatter about that. Okay, so it sounds like they want to double check a leak check. So we may see that hatch reopen momentarily. Nominally, we would expect right about now to hear a call out for hatch close right at T-minus 1 hour and 55 minutes. So we haven't heard that just yet, but we did hear that the teams are looking at reopening the hatch to double check some leaks.
So what I'm hearing is that the closeout team saw a little bit of a pressure drop during those leak checks. So like I mentioned before, it's not like closing a door, right? Or it's not closing the door to your car. The door closes. They check the environments inside the capsule, make sure we're good. Then they perform a leak check again, essentially making sure that the cabin and the door are able to maintain pressure and environments. So something like this, if they have to reopen it, it might just be they have to reposition a seal. So we're considered a minor issue at the moment, but it might be as simple as allowing us to open the hatch, check the seals and the latch mechanism, and then able to reclose it.
Okay, we're going to go over to John Insprucker in Hawthorne. He's been listening to some more details. John, can you give us an update on what's going on now?
Yeah, Marie, I've been listening into the Dragon nets in addition to Falcon 9. Right now you can see on the screen the crew inside Dragon. Everything is safe at the launch pad. We have not gotten into propellant load. What we were doing is our standard procedures. We did communications checks that you heard a while back. They checked the environmental. Hey, the temperature was just right for the crew inside. And then we command to close the hatch. The team then locks it down. And we run a leak check just to make sure that it is leak tight. We're running that leak check and they saw a little bit of a drop in pressure. So what you're seeing on the screen right now from the outside of the capsule on the left, the SpaceX ingress team in the access arm in the White Room, they're going to open that hatch back up again. One thing they want to look at is just make sure nothing got trapped in the seal. They're going to take a look at the latch mechanism. They also are checking their equipment to make sure that it's try to make sure whether or not it's actually in the capsule or it might be in the measuring equipment that they're holding onto. So you can see right now the latch or the hatch has come open and they are beginning the troubleshooting, taking a look around the seals of the hatch.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that we do have about 10 minutes of margin in the schedule for this troubleshooting.
And 10 minutes before they need to start closing the hatch again?
That is correct. Yeah, 10 minutes till hatch close, and they're taking a look at the CO at this time.
Dragon copies.
I'm only listening to program now. Hey, Marie, this is John. Did you ask me a question? I didn't pick it up.
Yeah, I wanted to first just acknowledge that we heard on the call-outs that they said that they had about 10 minutes of margin in the schedule, so not necessarily going to throw the timeline off track. But is this something, I know that people that are watching this live have got to be wondering, is this something that can cause a scrub, or how significant is this issue right now?
Well, I'd say from a crew safety standpoint, which is what we're always looking out for, if we could not resolve the issue, if we thought we were actually measuring a leak, then that would be a probable scrub issue for today. However, it's premature to say that. They're doing the first round of troubleshooting. And yeah, I also heard the comment, we've got about 10 minutes, but as a reminder, the SpaceX team doesn't actually leave the crew access arm until T-minus 60 minutes. So while we've got standard margin, they may be able to compress other activities since there's still 50 minutes before the crew that you see there in the black pad access uniforms actually has to get out of the area.
Sure. And, when we put out the mission timeline ahead of time so folks can follow along, but we understand and we try to impress upon others that these are the kinds of things that can come up. And so this timeline, while it's a guide, it is fluid.
For sure. Thinking back to Demo 2, if I remember correctly, they were also running ahead of schedule in terms of when Bob and Doug got in their seats and strapped in and closed the hatch. So obviously, given an instantaneous launch window for the space station launches, if we didn't have margin, that would be a potential scrub scenario. But like we heard at the call out earlier, we're about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. So glad to have that flexibility.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Kate was saying, looking back over my notes, when we did the first Demo 2 launch, it wasn't until about right now in the countdown that the first hatch leak check completed. So by that schedule, which we were ready to support launch right on time until the weather got us, we're still looking good, I think, in the countdown.
Something I want to point out, you heard me mention earlier that the team is working off of tablets following along with the procedures. This is considered the kind of contingency procedure that is written into the procedures. So what we're seeing them go through on screen now, they're not, while they are troubleshooting live, we do have a procedure written for this type of contingency. So it's a matter of working through those side steps essentially.
Nicole, I wonder, did you have any issues that had to be worked through real time on either of your shuttle missions that might have been similar to something like this?
Yeah, I think in both cases, actually, and it's really amazing how the team just comes together and works those procedures like Kate mentioned, where we've tried our best to think about what could go wrong in these different scenarios, and then put those procedures in place to work it. And as a crew inside, unless there's something that we can actively participate in, we're just following along to make sure that everything is picking back up onto the timeline, and then waiting in case there is some switch to throw or communication to have to help with the procedure.
Okay, so again, if you're just joining us, we're at T-minus 1 hour and 47 minutes. We did not hear the call out of hatch closure yet because when they were going through the leak check process, they noticed a pressure drop inside the capsule. So they opened the hatch back up, and as John and I explained, there is some margin in the schedule. And so this is not necessarily a showstopper. It would be premature to speculate about any of that. So far, we are still on track for launch. We're just watching some troubleshooting in real time.
On the right-hand side of the screen, we can see the crew sitting pretty comfortably there in their seats. Something I didn't get to mention earlier is that the seats themselves are custom sized for each astronaut. So not only is the length of the bucket, so basically the length from the tailbone to your shoulders, that is specific for each astronaut, but so is the footrest as well as the armrest. So expecting to fly people of many different heights and wanting to make sure that their positioning is not only operational but comfortable as well. And it seems like everyone's pretty comfy in there.
And we can't overstate how important the job is of this pad closeout team who is doing these leak checks and making sure that that hatch is secure and behaving the way it should be before they leave the pad, because these 4 astronauts are inside a capsule that is going to be fueled in a little over an hour and head off to space. And so it's the job of these people that you see on the left of your screen, in addition to hundreds and thousands more around the country that have been working so hard for months and years to keep this crew safe. Again, this is the first operational or rotation mission of 4 people on Crew Dragon, the first of hopefully many more to come. And so the team has to keep the crew safe.
So I'm now hearing that that closeout team that we saw there were able to check the seals and clean them a little bit. They found a little piece of FOD there in the seal, so that's probably what was causing the hatch to not maintain pressure. So they are about to, I can't quite tell on the screen, but they will be starting to close that.
And what is FOD for people who don't know the acronym?
Foreign object debris.
Okay. So what's an example of what that could be?
It's hard to tell because it depends on the environment, but something as small as a piece of lint to, something like our cell phone or an earring. So that's part of the reason why earlier in the webcast I mentioned that the the suit technician team are checking to make sure nobody's wearing unapproved earrings or jewelry. Those are all considered FOD or foreign object debris. But it looks like we're going to be closing that hatch again if it's not already, and reperforming that leak check. Like I mentioned before, we do have contingencies built into our procedures. We are running ahead of schedule, so nothing to speculate causing an abort at this time. But that being said, we will be repressurizing that hatch. And I should say that it's not like we bring it to pressure and check it. It's good. You want to bring it to pressure, allow it to sit there for a couple of minutes and watch whatever the decay is, if any.
Dragon SpaceX, first status.
And go ahead for Dragon.
Yeah, the team did find a possible root cause. They are checking cabin environments, and we're getting ready to close the hatch again.
Okay, Dragon copies, and we see pad hatch closed, prep.
Copy.
So just the ground crew core communicating to the crew inside Dragon, giving them a status update, letting them know that potential root cause has been found and that they will be closing that hatch and beginning the leak check once again.
So we heard that they may have identified the root cause, but we haven't heard what that root cause is or what they suspect it is yet. So if we hear that, we will relay that to you, but that is not information that we have heard just yet.
And Dragon SpaceX hatch is closed.
Dragon copies, do the same.
Okay, so we heard hatch is closed, and so we expect a leak check to be forthcoming. Again, we've got the pad closeout team on the left of your screen, closing the Dragon side hatch for the second time, getting ready to do another leak check. And the crew is sitting tight on the right-hand side of the screen.
So we see them performing the mechanical sealing of the hatch. After this is complete, we'll begin the leak check.
We are at T minus 1 hour and 40 minutes, so with still some margin in this schedule, so this is not necessarily going to throw the rest of the launch timeline off track, but we're just standing by to see if the teams can get this issue resolved. Okay, it sounds like we've got an update from John Innsbrucker in Hawthorne. John, what can you tell us?
Well, Marie, right now we're just inside 100 minutes until the Falcon 9 launch. We're waiting right now to hear the results of the hatch leak check. The second one's going on. As we've mentioned, we think we found a little bit of debris in the seal, and fingers crossed that we're going to do that. We're also waiting to hear the comm checks between the Dragon crew and the Falcon 9 launch team, the responsible engineers down in the firing
Dragon
room.
SpaceX for status.
To catch up right now, as I mentioned, we're just inside of 100 minutes.
And go ahead for Dragon.
Okay, the leak check hardware is connected and we're holding pressure now. Still in progress.
Dragon copies, and that's good news.
Yeah, and I will provide some more words on what they identified during my post-ingress brief.
Okay, Dragon copies, and I assume we still have some more time on the leak check.
That's affirmed. Yeah, they're still performing it.
Dragon.
Okay, we heard a little bit of chatter. I'm not sure if y'all picked it up on the webcast, but they talked briefly to the crew, gave them an update similar to one we were just presenting y'all. The good news is that they are farther along in the leak check right now than they got the first time. So again, things are going in the right direction the second time around. They're also looking at the timeline for the crew ingress team that you see there on the left monitor, the SpaceX folks. They will be able to leave a little bit later than T-minus 1 hour and still be able to get clear of the area in plenty of time for us to do propellant loading and the launch. Now, right now on the Falcon 9, we're waiting to do the comm checks with the crew. Our launch engineers for the launch vehicle, they are in firing room 4.
Dragon SpaceX for Falcon 9 comm checks.
And here comes the comm checks. Let's listen in.
And go ahead for Falcon 9 comm check.
Yeah, if you're ready, we are going to kick those off.
Dragon's ready.
Dragon GNC on countdown 1, comm check.
And GNC, this is Dragon on countdown 1. Have you loud and clear.
GNC loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by propulsion.
Dragon prop on countdown 1, comm check.
And prop Dragon on countdown 1. Have you loud and clear.
prop, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check with avionics engineer.
Dragon, avionics on countdown 1, comm check.
Avionics, this is Dragon on countdown 1. I have you loud and clear.
Avionics, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by the ground segment engineer.
Dragon, ground segment on countdown 1, comm check.
Ground segment, this is Dragon on countdown 1. We have you loud and clear.
Ground segment, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by launch control.
Dragon, launch control on countdown 1, comm check.
Launch control, this is Dragon on countdown 1, loud and clear.
Launch control, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check by the chief engineer.
Dragon, see on countdown, comm check.
CE, this is Dragon. Hans, we have you loud and clear on countdown.
CE, loud and clear. This completes the Falcon 9 responsible engineer comm checks. Safe flight.
Correct.
Okay, the good news is we've gotten through the comm checks between the SpaceX team and the Dragon capsule. We're at T-minus 1 hour and 34 minutes. On the Falcon 9, everything continues to look
SpaceX
good. Big event really coming up.
Launch escape
is
checks.
propellant loading as we get inside T-minus 35 minutes.
And
on
go
the
ahead
Dragon
for
side.
cadence close checklist.
Okay, Resilience, at this time we're going
there for
to
a second.
commence health check for the launch escape system. You can expect a momentary flight computer state change followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
Dragon copies, and we're monitoring.
Okay, I think we've got a moment now listening to them talk to the crew. On Dragon, other than the side hatch leak check that's been going underway, everything else has been looking good. On the weather front, the good news is that while we've been watching for rain showers in the trajectory of the Falcon 9, we've been watching for heavy rain or thick clouds. Currently, everything does continue to cooperate as we were hoping. The frontal boundary was slowing down and may not reach Kennedy Space Center by the time of launch. And right now that continues to look like it's going to happen. So the local conditions are good. Upper altitude winds, we're looking at the balloons we've been releasing, and those show us that conditions in the upper altitude for stability are good. So we ought to go for launch in about 92 minutes if the weather cooperates, and of course the range is ready to go. So right now, we're going to throw it back to Daryl while we wait for follow-on discussions.
John, thank you very much for that update. And we're here at the Kennedy Space Center, of course, and I can confirm for you, John, weather is looking good right here. Just a thin layer of clouds overhead right here at the launch complex. I'm joined now by Deputy Administrator Jim Morhard for NASA here, and we appreciate him coming to talk a little bit about licensing of these launches. And that's a new thing around here, Jim, because previously that's not something that we heard a lot about. But we understand that this launch is the first commercially licensed launch by the FAA. So explain to me why that is and how that works.
You know, Gerald, it has just been certified for the first time. We license a lot of launches. We had 29 launches that were licensed in 2020. And we're expecting another 56 in 2021. So it's going exponential.
Yeah.
And we're excited about that. We've really collaborated with the Federal Aviation Administration, which is part of the Department of Transportation. Steve Dixon is the administrator. He's here right now. He's been with us through the week, working with us, which is just tremendous. There's a great collaboration between the two agencies.
So help the public kind of understand what this means. I think, generally speaking, we all understand that we get aboard a commercial aircraft. That carrier is FAA licensed. So now we're licensing spaceflight, launches, commercial ones with people on board. So what does that, what does the public take away from that?
You think about it, we have the most complex airspace in the world over the United States. And now we're going to expand it even more into space. And so we're really integrating both our aeronautics, our aircraft that we fly, enjoy every day, with space operations. So we're going to have both those things happening at the same time with human spaceflight. And that's what we're doing here today at the Kennedy Space Center.
That's impressive. And just when you mentioned the airspace in flight, right? Very crowded place. Space just getting started, and as you mentioned, growing. Where do you see this, when you just kind of dream a little bit, where do you see this going one day?
Daryl, you think about it. First off, it's both Federal Aviation Administration, but at NASA also, our number one priority is safety. That's what we're focused on. But in the meantime, we're commercializing low Earth orbit. Right now we have a $350 billion space economy in low Earth orbit.
That's true. That's a big number.
It is a big number.
350 billion.
And people are talking in the future going to over $1 trillion. And so it is just, we're starting the dawn of a new space age.
And quickly, I think you were telling me that this also increases our ability to do science on the International Space Station, right?
With these 4 great astronauts, and Jim Bridenstine and I met with them yesterday, and they want to fly, and we want to make sure they fly safely. But with that, when they get to the space station, we've got 1 astronaut there right now. It's going to increase our research efforts up there by 300%. And we really believe that demand is going to grow. And the hope is ultimately that we'll have commercial space stations that are built by our space industry in the United States. And so, because there's so much research to be done.
All right, well, very good. Illuminating information about the licensing of spaceports. Appreciate your efforts and all your work in getting these government agencies to work together and talk to each other and come together with some consensus there. That's good stuff.
It's my honor, but this is about safety, and we're going to keep doing it.
Excellent. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Jim. Jim Morhart, Deputy Administrator with NASA, and we are now at T-minus 1 hour and 28 minutes. We'll toss it back to John I in Hawthorne, California. John? Well, maybe not John. We'll go to Marie, right here across the way at KSC.
All right, thanks, Daryl. I've got a brother named John, so I'll answer to either. We are standing by for a post-ingress briefing to the crew.
Dragon SpaceX for side hatch leak check.
Go ahead for the side hatch leak check.
Okay, good news. The leak check has passed, and we saw consistent readings to what we saw on dry dress. So it looks good.
That's great news, SpaceX.
So what you just heard there was the core team briefing the crew, letting them know that the leak check passed, and we're going to be moving along in the timeline here. They're now attaching the final exterior cover there on the side hatch.
Mm-hmm. And they mentioned that the levels that they checked were consistent with dry dress. They were referring to the rehearsal that was conducted Thursday. So just a couple of days ago, they went through this process. It's called the dry dress rehearsal because they do everything except fuel up the rocket and, of course, launch. So when they did the checks that day, obviously things were nominal. The first time they closed the side hatch, they noticed a drop in pressure when they did the leak check. So they opened the hatch back up, discovered some foreign object debris, or what we call FOD, cleared that out. We don't know what exactly it was yet. We might hear about that in the post-ingress briefing. But they closed the hatch back up, did another leak check. Everything looks nominal, and that's what we just heard confirmation of. So that they said that was great news. So it sounds like we're getting back on track now.
So it looked like that closeout team member just took the final closeout photo there, or one of final, and we are moving along. If you look closely on the right-hand side, you might be able to make out some signatures there on the wall of our white room.
And certainly the astronauts sitting inside the Crew Dragon capsule right now appreciate the attention to detail of this pad closeout team.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Marie, it's interesting. I think one of the things we definitely appreciate is that the team that works here with us on these spacecraft absolutely believe that the care and feeding of those spacecraft is their responsibility. And we know that. You can tell as they're working with you and hear them outside the hatch and on the radio as well.
Now, Kate, can you explain what we're seeing now?
It's a little difficult for me to see on the screen. I'm sorry, I can't tell what they're doing.
It is a little off, you know, it's above the frame of the camera view that we can see.
Are there things they have to remove before the seal with the hatch can pull back?
No, there's nothing necessarily attached to the capsule, but I would like to point out, again, we're not only taking into consideration the safety of the crew, but the safety of our team members as well. You can see the straps there. I believe what they're doing is they're basically allowing, so there's a mechanism there on the crew access arm. There's kind of like an airplane door. It doesn't, the metallic pieces don't go anywhere near close to the airplane, but there's a little bit of a seal there to try and control the environment. Again, dealing with humidity and rain and bugs here in Florida, trying to keep all of that out and keep the environment stable and under control there. But yeah, so they are now preparing to move all of that fixturing away, and they are leaning out over towards essentially the side of the rocket. So we have those wires in place for fall protection.
So we should be hearing any time now a post-ingress briefing. That's what we're expecting for the crew inside to kind of get a recap. Okay, so maybe a couple more minutes before we hear that briefing. So we're going to move on temporarily. We've made mention of the first crew to launch in Crew Dragon a little earlier this year, and you may remember them as the Space Dads, as they are affectionately known by the NASA and SpaceX teams who work with them. We watched them lift off from this very spot back in May, ending a 9-year gap in human spaceflight from American soil. And we want to honor the courage of NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley with a look at their historic Demo 2 test flight.
Welcome aboard. Dragon, SpaceX, ComCheck, ground stations.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
On behalf of the entire launch team, thanks for flying with Falcon 9 today. We hope you enjoyed the ride and wish you a great mission.
We would like to welcome you aboard Capsule Endeavour. We do have a friend on board with us, Trimmer, the Apatosaurus. I think I was requested to do a backflip. Good night, Megan and Theo. And Karen and Jack.
MD Houston flight. Houston is go for undocking and departure.
Dragon is committed to undock.
SpaceX Dragon on Dragon to ground. We are ready for the systems brief.
Copy. As stated, Dragon's in a healthy state. We are proceeding toward the primary landing site, and your timeline is current.
visual. 2 drogues out.
300 meters. We are braced for splashdown.
Copy, brace for splashdown. Endeavour, on behalf of the SpaceX and NASA teams, welcome back to planet Earth, and thanks for flying SpaceX.
It's a humbling experience to be a part of what was accomplished.
It's great to see how excited everybody was. We hope it brings a little bit of brightness to a pretty tough 2020.
Wow. I don't know about you guys, but that gives me goosebumps watching that recap.
Yeah, absolutely.
My family and I made a point to drive over here to the East Coast to watch launch from just down the road in Cocoa Beach with our dear friends, the Honeycutts, a name that's familiar to the Kennedy Space Center family. And I'll tell you, it was a real joy to watch Bob and Doug in space and then to have them safely back on the planet with us. And now, special treat, we're going to hear from my dear friends and fellow bugs, AKA the Space Dads themselves. Daryl is standing by to talk with them. Daryl.
That's right, Nicole. We have Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, the Space Dads, with us live from Houston, Texas. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on yet another historic day here at the Kennedy Space Center.
Hey, Daryl, how are you?
Howdy, Daryl.
Good to see you guys. Good to see you. So you know this moment. You remember it, I'm sure, well, when we came to this moment in time where the capsule, the door was closed. Tell us what you guys were thinking in this moment as we see astronauts, the 4 Crew 1 astronauts getting ready to fly.
Well, you're just thinking about the mission ahead, what you need to do to get through the next hour or two, the timeline. I mean, you know, you don't have a lot of time to think about a lot else. You've kind of wrapped everything up before you walked down and walked out, got to the pad. So we're just going through the checks with the teams, following along and doing the things that we need to do.
You just saw that video that was put together about the whole mission that you guys did. Is there anything that, as you watch that, stands out to you as, you know, that was my favorite moment?
I think for both of us, our favorite moment was after splashdown, when we were able to get the hatch opened and climb out of the vehicle. As you might imagine, as you embark on a test flight, you've got to have a lot of things go very smoothly, and you got to get them all done and get to the final test point that's out there, which was the splashdown and coming home. And so I think there's a little bit of relief, but kind of a big, let our emotions come out, I think, at that point, after being really focused on, you know, the mission at hand all the way up to that point.
And Doug, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with Bob. You know, we invested 5 years with the teams. We went out to Hawthorne almost every week the last 2 years that before we launched. And so, you know, just a culmination of an incredible amount of work by so many people, and to be just a small part of it, and then to complete the mission successfully and have the type of mission that we had, where we were able to do a whole bunch of work on board Space Station, including 4 spacewalks, and then complete the test flight of Crew Dragon and get it ready for this crew. It just, you know, it's indescribable to be a part of that type of an event. And, you know, we're just excited to see what's going to happen, hopefully here in just an hour or two.
Yeah, just an hour and 16 minutes until launch. And so I want to know about a conversation that you guys had. You had some important conversations with this crew. What did you tell them? What advice did you give them?
Well, Doug and I got a chance to sit down with the Crew 1 folks, just like everybody else is these days, over across a video conference soon after we returned. And we tried to give them the benefit of the experiences that we had and some suggestions on some things that might help their mission go a little bit smoother. But I think the biggest message that we passed on to them was that there was a good ship here, and it did a great job getting us to Space Station and back, and they should have confidence in the team as they go off and execute their mission. And so there are things that can be improved after our test flight, and they took a lot of those minor things to heart. But overall, we just really passed on just a lot of confidence in the vehicle, and that, you know, that goes a long way for a team that's got a lot of things to do as they lead up to the mission that they're about to launch on today, and not a lot of time if you look at how quickly the vehicle got assessed, and changes were made in preparation for this mission. It was just a short couple months ago, I think, at this point, since we came home, and we just really wanted to pass our confidence on to them as they got ready for their mission.
And Commander Hopkins, in fact, said that he appreciated Doug Hurley telling him that when he was commanding the landing, that he was ahead of the spacecraft. Describe what that means and why you think that helped him.
Well, it was a little bit drawn on my experience as a shuttle pilot. My first flight, I just felt like I had to work really hard to keep up with the shuttle as we were re-entering. And, it's a little bit of how you operate on orbit, and then the quickness of the events that you deal with on re-entry. Everything happens pretty fast. So just mentally knowing that was coming, I tried to enforce that with Hopper and just say, hey, look, it's, you're going to be in orbit for a while. Your brain slows down in a sense. But then when re-entry occurs, those events really happen fast. From the time that you separate from the trunk all the way to splashdown happens, it seems like in an instant. So we talked a lot about that, and I just wanted him to be calibrated and be ahead of Dragon as best he could, and then communicate that obviously to his crew. He's got a great crew, and they'll be ready for it when they come back in next spring.
And in fact, he said that as a result of that statement, that he studied hard because he knew he had to be ahead of it in order for when these events happen to be ready for them as they come. Bob Bink and Doug Hurley, astronauts with NASA, and the crew of Demo 1. We appreciate you guys. Demo 2, sorry. Appreciate you guys being here. Thank you very much. And enjoy the launch. And now we're going to send it back to the desk.
All right, thank you, Daryl. It is T-minus 1 hour and 13 minutes, and we understand John I has been listening in, has some more information to pass along on what's been going on, what information the crew has. So, John I, let's hand it over to you in Hawthorne.
Thank you, Marie. It's, as she said, T-minus 1 hour, 13 minutes, 24 seconds. The good news is we are on the timeline. While we were interviewing Bob and Doug, we did hear some discussion with the crew over the SpaceX to Dragon crewnet. They gave them an update on a couple of issues that we've been working. The one of great interest right now has been the hatch close. They summarized that, as you saw on the monitors, we did reopen the hatch. They found a small piece of FOD, and they also worked on the seal around the hatch. They also did add a little bit of lubricant. They closed the hatch and then reran the 5-minute leak check, and they got a good result. So the crew heard that, and they are supportive, and that issue is now resolved and behind us. The other issue that we've been working that they briefed the crew on is just above the first stage where the propellant tanks and the inner stage meet. You can't see on your monitor there, but there are some weep holes, and what we've seen is some water, I think, from maybe rain that has gotten in there has drained out, and that gave a little bit of discoloration. They wanted to make sure that might not be something else like the RP1 fuel that's on board the rocket. So they've done some review of data. They see no issues with the fuel system, or in this case, it's the grid fin system that's in proximity in that area. They believe it's water. They briefed the crew, and again, that issue is now closed out. So coming up on just inside T-minus 1 hour and 12 minutes, we've closed up our couple issues, and as we also heard just a couple minutes ago, the closeout team has left the crew access arm, so we're looking good on schedule. So Jesse, everything in the very busy last 20 minutes or so has come together and closed out. What else has been going on?
That is awesome news, John. Thank you for that very detailed update. We're just 1 hour and 11 minutes from launch, and it just keeps getting more and more exciting, especially with those updates coming in. Since arriving at the spacecraft, the crew were helped by our closeout engineers to get into their seats, attach their suits to special umbilicals that provide breathing air and a communication link to Dragon systems. They conducted leak checks, which were successful, and communications checks with the Corps here in Hawthorne, which is the person who will speak to them directly throughout the mission, as well as the launch director in Florida. This is where they are checking their comm path through both ground stations and tracking and data relay satellites that will use to talk to the crew the entire way to the station.
And after those suit checks, we were looking for the leak check on the hatch. So we closed the hatch, and as John and I explained, there were some pressure changes. And so they reopened the hatch, removed what appears to be a piece of foreign object debris or FOD, reclosed the hatch, conducted those leak checks, and everything has come out well. So the closeout team is departing the pad, and weather operators are kicking off the final check on wind speeds at the pad, and that'll be used for the final go, no-go poll for launch. Before we get to that final go, no-go, the various teams at both NASA and SpaceX will do an internal go poll, making sure conditions are right with the Falcon 9, the Dragon, the crew, the range, and the space station before the final go is given. So let's check back in on Houston for a status on the team supporting the space station on their readiness for launch. Shaniqua?
Thanks, Leah. The team here in Mission Control Houston remains go for launch. All systems on board the station that required to be healthy for mission are continuing to look good. Before the station team is go for launch, they verify that key systems on board the station are functioning as expected. This includes life support systems like oxygen generation, carbon dioxide removal, and the water recycling system that allows us to reuse about 9% of the water we send to station. We're also ensuring that the computers that allow us to command the station's major subsystems, essentially the station's nervous system, are functioning normally. We also work with our Russian counterparts to ensure both methods of controlling the station's attitude or the direction station is pointing are fully functional. This includes the large U.S. gyroscopes and the thrusters found in the Russian segments. Both systems play a critical role during Dragon stocking. Mission Control Houston will be closely monitoring the crew's flight and checking off milestones for most of the journey. Lead NASA Flight Director of Crew 1, Anthony Varia, will lead flight controllers in Houston for launch, and they will all be coming back tomorrow for docking, where we join joint operations with SpaceX. So I'll send it back over to you, Marie at KSC.
All right, thank you, Shaniqua. If you are just now joining us, you picked a great time as we are now at T-minus 8 minutes and 22 seconds until launch. Welcome to coverage for the mission known as Crew 1, NASA and SpaceX's second flight with crew to the International Space Station. Liftoff time is still holding for 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time, an instantaneous launch window, and we are tracking no issues currently with Falcon 9 or Crew Dragon. The range is green and weather is cooperating so far. The last check, it was 50% go. Over the last 3 hours, our crew of Victor Glover, Mike Hopkins, Shannon Walker, and Soichi Noguchi donned their SpaceX spacesuits in the historic crew quarters suit-up room. They walked out of that crew quarters building just as every astronaut to fly from this spaceport in Florida has done since Apollo 7. They were then transported to the pad, where our crew entered the SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft you see live on your screen atop the Falcon 9 rocket.
Well, this is SpaceX's second time flying astronauts in Crew Dragon. It will also be the first time a private company will fly a crew of 4 people to the space station. If you remember, back in May, we launched NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken to the space station in the historic Demo 2 mission and then brought them safely home in August. Over the next hour, we will conduct a series of polls to get ready for launch, have the crew arm and the launch escape system, and we'll begin fueling Falcon 9. Launch is set for 7:27 p.m. Eastern. This will include a 12-minute flight to orbit and then a 27.5-hour flight to dock with the International Space Station, set for Monday at 11 p.m. Eastern.
So, Nicole, you know, we're coming up on T-minus 1 hour in about 6 minutes. And I know when we were listening to Daryl talk to Bob and Doug, Doug talked about how, you know, there's not a lot of time to think about your emotions. You're focused on the operation and your procedures.
Yeah, your emotions are kind of in you at this point, and you're just trying to make sure you're as best prepared for, you know, what's about to happen.
Sure. And today's flight is the first of 6 planned rotational missions NASA has contracted with SpaceX as part of the agency's Commercial Crew Program. The success of the Demo 2 mission allowed for NASA to complete certification for SpaceX to fly astronauts regularly to and from the ISS, bringing back this critical capability of launching from American soil, which we haven't had the ability to do regularly since the retirement of the space shuttle in 2011.
If you've been following along, you've been able to hear that we have been hearing a little bit from crew on board Dragon Resilience, currently strapped into their seats, and they've already gone through all of their communication and suit leak checks. Now, they are able to follow along with all of the action still ahead on the displays that are just above them. There are a couple of touchscreen displays, and that allows them to get insight into all of the Dragon and Falcon 9 systems as we proceed down towards launch. So we're currently at T-minus 1 hour and 5 minutes. Let's check in with John Innsbrucker for another status update on both vehicles. How's it going there, John?
Yeah,
Thank you, Kate. T-minus 1 hour, 5 minutes.
Closeout team to clear the VDA. Once that's complete, we're going to cycle the tank valves to equalize the manifold pressure. This is the same thing we executed yesterday earlier this week during dry jets.
Okay, we copy that, and Jay, your call's coming in a little bit soft, and we're losing you kind of at the end of them.
Copy all on that call, and I'll let you know when we're ready for that tank valve cycling.
Okay, Dragon copies, and that was much better. Thank you.
Okay, we've just heard a little bit of the dialogue between the crew inside the Dragon capsule Resilience and the SpaceX Dragon team. Looks like they're going to be cycling a little bit of pressure, giving the crew a heads up. Probably hear some of that noise. Now, as I've mentioned, we're T-minus 1 hour and 4 minutes, counting down. Good news is, as you heard a few minutes ago, we've resolved a couple issues we were working earlier in the count. And while the pace was busy before, now it's going to begin to pick up again. Falcon 9 is into its checkouts of first and second stage propulsion systems and engines. That's in preparation for propellant loading. We're going to hear polls between T-minus 47, T-minus 45 minutes on readiness for propellant loading and then on to launch. And then at T-minus 35 minutes, propellant loading will begin. Now on Dragon, we've done our checkouts. Everything is looking good. The astronauts are currently inside Dragon. The hatch is closed, and the leak check is successfully complete. The SpaceX folks have left the access area and I believe are now clear of the blast area. So we'll have 2 major events coming up on Dragon. Between T-minus 45 and T-minus 42 minutes, we're going to see that crew access arm currently alongside Dragon. That's going to retract away from the capsule. And then we'll follow that pretty much immediately by arming of the Dragon launch escape system. That needs to be armed prior to loading propellant onto the Falcon 9. We're launching out of historic pad 39A from the Eastern Range. The range is green and go to support launch, not only here, also the worldwide network of ground stations and the on-orbit tracking and data relay satellites are ready to support Dragon as it heads to orbit. And the good news, weather continues to be acceptable, both at ground level and the upper altitude.
Dragon SpaceX, we are cycling the orbit tank isolation valves to equalize pressure.
Heard the call out from Core. They're cycling the valves to equalize pressure. Now, as a reminder, we have an instantaneous launch window today at 27 minutes, 17 seconds after the hour. So once we get into propellant loading, there's no opportunity to change the T0. Once we get into propellant loading, and actually right now, we're committed. We can't slow down or add some more margin time. We've got to finish up the last 62 minutes. But the good news, Jesse, at just inside T-minus 62 minutes, we are go for launch.
It's great to hear, John. Sounds like everything is going back to normal, is that right? We've got an extensive history now of flying Falcon 9 from the Florida coast, and earlier this year we completed a test run of the mission that we're just an hour away from beginning here today.
And the purpose of that mission was to demonstrate Dragon's capability to safely and reliably fly humans to and from the International Space Station. The success of Demo 2 was a truly exciting moment and paved the way for today's mission.
And Dragon SpaceX valve cycling is complete.
Dragon copy.
And good words from Cord to the crew. But that mission paved the way for where we are today, sending this full crew for a long-duration expedition aboard the International Space Station.
Dragon and Falcon 9 together have years of operational experience, or what we refer to as flight heritage. As Liam mentioned earlier, SpaceX has successfully completed 23 flights of Dragon to and from orbit since 2010, including 22 trips to the International Space Station. Not only have we conducted thousands of hours of testing, we've also enhanced and added a number of safety features to Dragon.
Much of what was learned with Cargo Dragon was leveraged in the design of this vehicle. It's fully autonomous, which means it can basically fly itself, but also features full manual override capabilities in case of emergency. Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley tested these capabilities during the Demo 2 mission to the station.
Many of the other enhancements help towards SpaceX's goal of reusability and less refurbishment time between missions. So let's take a closer look at some of these advancements.
Standing at almost 27 feet tall from bottom of the trunk to top of the nose cone, Crew Dragon is composed of two main elements.
SpaceX, just passing T-minus 1 hour. Your go for Section 6. When ready, report go for launch.
Dragon copy. Section 6 is in work.
T-minus 1 hour, we're getting there. But the capsule that the crew is flying on today is designed to hold crew and pressurized cargo, and it also has an unpressurized section known as the trunk.
The nose cone at the top of the capsule protects the docking system and also the guidance navigation control system, or what we call GNC. The nose cone opens for docking and remains attached to the Crew Dragon spacecraft, unlike the previous version of Dragon, and that helps towards our reusability efforts.
Opposite the nose cone is the trunk. It provides attachment points for Falcon 9, the Dragon capsule, and cargo. On the outside, one half of the trunk contains a radiator that rejects heat from the active thermal control system to space using SpaceX's new picotiling technology. The other half contains solar cells used to charge the spacecraft's batteries.
The spacecraft is designed to accommodate up to 7 crew members with modular seats that can be removed and replaced by additional cargo.
And SpaceX, this is Dragon Resilience for 6.4 of 4.100 launch prep. Dragon is go for launch.
Copy, go for launch. Yeah, we're looking good on weather, and you can expect the next call to be the C brief at T-minus 45.
And very exciting. Very exciting. We just got confirmation that Dragon is go for launch. The next call coming up will be from the launch director. So exciting that we are on target for T0 today. Back to what we were talking about, the seats are made of carbon fiber and will be custom sized for any crew members flying on board.
That control panel is centered between the pilot and the commander seats. You can see it a little bit here on the right side of your screen. That consists of 3 touchscreen displays, allowing the crew to operate the vehicle and fly it manually.
And finally, our Super Draco launch escape system is a key safety feature of Crew Dragon, giving the crew the ability to safely escape from the time of launch all the way to orbit.
And we are now T-minus 57 minutes from launch. This day is the beginning of regular crew flights to the space station from U.S. soil, NASA having certified SpaceX for these missions after the successful Demo 2 flight test, which launched in May and splashed down safely in August.
Today's mission will be Crew Dragon's second mission with astronauts aboard and its first long-duration mission to the International Space Station. It's been an awesome countdown so far. Weather is still looking good.
We just on countdown. The technical team has been pulled and is ready to proceed into the propellant load. Thank you.
And not only is weather good, but sounds like we're proceeding into propellant load. So we're at T-minus 56 minutes and 37 seconds, and we're just getting closer and closer to that T0. So exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a great countdown today. Of course, a few things we didn't expect, but nonetheless, everything's continuing on schedule. So starting with suit up, just over 3 hours ago, the SpaceX team helped the crew put on their suits and conduct initial checkouts before crew walkout. Crew walkout was where Victor Glover, Mike Hopkins, Shannon Walker, and Soichi Noguchi gave final goodbyes with friends and family gathered outside the operations and checkout building before they began that roughly 20-minute ride to pad 39A.
And what a cool ride that was. What you're seeing on your screen is them getting into their vehicles, waving goodbye. We got some great footage of those Teslas heading down the NASA causeway before the crew arrived at the pad. And once they got to the pad, they took a minute to take in the sights. There you can see on your screen. They took some pictures and then they headed up into the fixed service structure to begin a process known as crew ingress, where the astronauts